guys, RagingSpiritGaming here. We're going to try something different. For the first time ever, you guys are going to get to see story time with RSG. On a side note, Canadian RNG merch, out now. Link down in the description if you guys want to check that out. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoy this, and let's get right into the story. Just a heads up, everybody reading this or listening to this is a true story of something that happened to me. Most of you won't believe it, and that's okay. I know what I experienced, I know what my friends saw, and most importantly, I know the feeling it gave me at the time. I will never forget that feeling. It haunts me to this day. Anyways, that's enough of my rambling. Let's get into the actual story. It was the summer of 2010. I was 13 going on 14 and was out at my trailer. There was a big, beautiful natural spring lake and a train track nearby. I always grew up believing in the supernatural, and had seen and felt some truly odd things in my short amount of years. I was excited because it was the first day of summer, and my best friend growing up, whom I had had a slight crush on for a few years, was going to be coming out for the whole summer. We made plans to camp out in tents outside the trailer all summer. We had a TV in there, everything we needed. I lived out there with my grandmother for the summer. My parents both worked back in my hometown, which was a rough hour drive away from the trailer park. So they stayed home to work, understandably, since it would be a burden to drive home and back every day. I was getting the tent set up for our summer campout and getting everything ready for when my friend got out there. At around 2 p.m., I heard someone coming by, so I came out of the tent to see who it was. It was her. For this story, we'll call her Jane. Jane came over to the tent and sat inside. She gave me a hug, we said our hellos, and stayed there talking about our plans for the summer. We wanted to go look through some abandoned buildings in the area since we were both interested in ghosts and the paranormal. We decided to go out for a walk and see which buildings we would go look at later in the summer. We left the trailer park, headed towards the small villages right outside the park. On the way, we passed by a small creek and a cemetery. As we passed the creek, we noticed there was a path through the grass going down towards the creek. We'd never seen it before. And of course, being curious kids, we decided we'd go take a look at what was down there and where it went. It came around the creek, under the train bridge, along the waterside into a small forested area. It was odd. We both grew up there every summer and always walked this way, but yet we'd never seen this path before. We kept going just to see where it led. As it went farther and farther, we started to see a small shack in the wooded area with no door, moss all over it. We also saw something blue hanging from a tree in a secluded area of the woods where we couldn't quite get to or see properly. We decided we'd head back, pack up a backpack with some supplies, and come back later. We went back and decided we would relax for the day and head out fresh start in the morning. I felt very weird about all of it. A path we'd never seen before, a broken down old shack, that blue thing draping off the trees. It just gave me an odd feeling that I couldn't quite shake. But she seemed so excited to explore, I just couldn't say no. So we went to bed and got everything ready for when we woke up. We got up early, my grandma made us breakfast, and we went out early in the morning for the path. We came up by the creek. I couldn't quite see the path anymore. I was starting to get a really bad feeling, almost like an intense feeling of despair. We got closer and finally found the path. It seemed to be in a different spot than before, though. But I just figured my mind was playing tricks on me due to feeling a little bit scared. Either way, I kept my mouth shut and led the way down. We brought along flashlights, a compass, some rain ponchos, snacks, and drinks with us. I pulled out the flashlight just for when we got a bit deeper, since the trees blocked out quite a bit of light. We walked for what felt like an hour until we finally saw the shack. I looked back to see if she showed any sign of being nervous. She didn't. She looked strong, confident, excited. She just had a spark in her eyes, and that's all I needed to see. I was feeling better, less scared, almost like I could do anything. We approached the shack. I shone a flashlight so we could see around. There was a bunch of old tools on the walls. A few had fallen on the floor. Some old harnesses, almost like whoever owned this used it as storage for farm equipment. I found this odd because the closest farm was across the creek. Why would someone build a tool storage across the creek from where they needed the tools? Why not put it up by their house to make the tools more accessible? Oh well, I didn't have any answers and just let it go. We looked around the outside of the shack. I saw something small shine through the fallen leaves. I walked over to the sparkle, to be surprised when the ground was suddenly solid. I pushed the leaves away with my foot and saw there was something small and wooden under the leaves, with a tiny shiny latch as a handle. It was the shack's missing door. I picked it up, placed it up against the side of the shack. I figured it couldn't hurt to stand the door back up. It was pretty heavy, but I wanted to seem strong, so I just did it myself and didn't ask for any help. We decided we should leave the shack for now. It didn't seem overly interesting, other than why there was farm equipment inside. We walked over the path and looked to see if we could find that blue thing again. We spotted it just barely in view. The path didn't go there, so we would have to find our own way through the forest. I led the way again, pushing our way through plants, weaving between trees, and as we got closer we could see that it was a giant blue tarp hung between 3 different trees, almost making a sort of shelter. I approached the makeshift shelter, peeked around to see what was inside. There was a sleeping bag, a small ring of stones with some coals in it, must have been a campfire. There was a rack over top of the burnt-out campfire, and a small pot on top of the rack. There was also a clothesline just on the other side of the shelter. It had a few sweaters on it, a pair of pants, what you'd expect to see on a clothesline. I looked to make sure no one was around, and put my hand close to the coals to see if they were still hot. I was really scared at this point. Who could be out here? There was nothing out here. My heart was pounding, my breathing became erratic. I had to calm down. I took a deep breath as my hands got closer to the coals. They were still warm. I turned to Jane and motioned for her to start walking back as soon as I stood up, and I headed back towards her. She gave me a confused look and went to speak, but I got to her first. I put a finger up to her lips to indicate that she should be quiet, and we started walking back towards the path. She followed, still looking bewildered. I waited until we got back to the shack to say anything, and the first word I could say was run. She asked me why, and I told her, it doesn't matter, just run. I'm right behind you. She took off at full sprint. I followed. As we got to the start of the path to go back up the hillside, I told her what I had seen down there. A full camp, the fire was recent. That somebody was living down there, and we had intruded on their living space. She looked extremely shocked. I turned to her. Do you see why I told you to run now? I said to her. She just looked at me and nodded. I told her we probably shouldn't go back there, but we should tell somebody about it, because we don't know who lives there. Maybe they were watching us. Maybe they'll follow us back. But we both knew we had to keep our mouths shut. We weren't supposed to be near the creek. We weren't even supposed to leave the trailer park. We went back, didn't say a word to anyone, and just ate our lunches in silence. Later that day, we went for a nice swim in the lake. We both seemed to have calmed down quite a bit, but I still couldn't get the picture of that camp out of my head. I could still feel the heat from the coals, even in the cool water. But worst of all, I just kept thinking about who could possibly be living out there. We were getting ready for bed, but we weren't tired. Although there was a park nearby that we used to frequent quite a lot as children. It was inside the trailer park, over by the lake. We decided we'd go there and just hang out for a bit until we got tired. There was an old train caboose that was turned into a trailer that sat right across from the park. Nobody had lived in it in years. So we decided we would wait until the last train of the night passed. Since the tracks were so close, the whole ground vibrated, and it was almost deafeningly loud. So we didn't want to leave right away. We waited for the 10:40 train to pass by, and knew there wouldn't be another train until 6 a.m., so we didn't have to worry about the sound killing our ears. We got to the park a little before 11, and just sat on the swing set. We looked out over the lake, talked about all kinds of things, from life to family. We probably talked for a good hour or so. Suddenly, we both turned towards the tracks. We could hear rumbling. We exchanged a confused glance. There's never trains at this time. But, sure enough, we heard the horn. That's all I remember for a while. This next section of the story is just what I could gather from her telling me in a hysterical state after the fact. According to Jane, I stood up, blank look on my face, and started walking towards the lake. She called for me multiple times, but I did not stop. I did not answer. I didn't even seem to know she was there. There was no train. She could hear it, but she could not see it. She could feel the wind fly by as if a train was there. She could hear the horn, the shaking of the rails, feel the vibrations through the ground. But there was no train. I kept walking towards the water, took a step in, and just kept going. She ran after me, grabbed me waist deep in the water, and held me tight. I kept trying to walk despite her best attempts to stop me. Suddenly, the train noises were gone. The ground stopped shaking. I looked at her and asked her, "Why are we in the water? Why are you holding me?" I had this extreme feeling of dread deep inside, almost as if I'd just lost someone or something very close to me. I was trying not to show my distress. She was upset enough. She was crying, trying to talk. She couldn't form any sort of word. We walked out of the water, sat on the ground, and I just held her for a while to see if I could help her calm down, see if she could tell me what happened. Eventually, she could form enough words to tell me what happened. To this very day, every time I hear a train, I get that feeling of dread. I wonder what really happened. Why I just started walking towards the water. Why I never responded. Why I don't remember it all. We never talked about it again. On a side note, no, we never found out what happened with the camp in the forest. Never found out what happened to whoever was living there. I still go out to that trailer park every summer to this day. I see Jane every year, and a few times since we've been adults, we went back to the creek, but I've never